Please.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man?
Shaft! So the dude who's been on FM News Talk 97.1 more the last 4 days than most other employees. How are you?
Good. I've been thinking about putting a cot back here. Just sleeping and just staying over.
Yeah, up early doing Tobler's show on Saturday. I know you had your weekend show with Tony on there. You were in here yesterday for me.
Feels good.
Now you're back.
You guys have a great occupation.
Thank you.
I could do this for a living.
I'm telling you what. I would agree with that. I wish I could. Anyway, we are. I was talking before I brought you in here about this reverend who Governor Greitens met with yesterday, and I don't know what time this meeting happened, but he's the only clergy member that they identified out of the ones that he supposedly met with. He supposedly met with black faith leaders yesterday in what he called a proactive approach to fears of unrest. Now, I guess my question is, did he enter the ceiling through a rope and kind of shimmy down it? Do we know?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. The rodeo he did that.
I don't know.
Maybe. He is a seal.
That would have been a way to make an entrance.
It would have.
But this reverend who they quoted in the paper today is the only person that they have identified, Reverend Dr. Lyndon Bowie, who's the president of the Missionary Baptist State Convention of Missouri. And I guess it's interesting because I don't know that he's one of the reverends who actually sat on the steps of the courthouse and said that there would be blood on the judge's hands if he didn't rule a certain way in the Stockley case.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's him or not, but here's what he had to say about this yesterday. Listen.
My statement to the governor was that perhaps you would want to come.
What in the world?
I got into that.
That was me. There was no music in the background there. What is going on here? I apologize for that.
Had a good beat to it.
It did, didn't it? All right, listen, here we go.
My concern is this thought that we even have to have these kind of meetings as if we already know what the verdict is going to be and what people's responses are going to be. That kind of raises a flag with me, and I don't necessarily understand how we came to be so proactive in advance, putting barriers out, and we don't even know what's going to take place. We could all throw a barbecue after the verdict comes down. We don't know yet, but the fact that they're posturing, there's posturing going on and all of that, it does raise flags with many of the leaders in our community.
So he's speaking as if he's representing these members of clergy who have these concerns, and yet questioning why police would want to put barriers up after folks have already claimed they're going to disrupt and riot downtown.
You know, I have since we've been dealing with the hurricane and all the flooding, I have a flooding analogy with this.
Okay.
You know, if you see floodwaters coming towards your house or towards your community, what do you do in advance?
You sandbag, baby.
You fill up sandbags
right.
to try to protect your home or your property from the potential. And I think that's the same thing with these barriers. Is that really outrageous after these activists have said that they're going to destroy St. Louis if they don't get the verdict that they want? Is it really that outrageous after what we saw in Ferguson, after the Michael Brown situation where we had rioting and looting? I think it would be not the right thing to put that stuff out. And I'm glad that the governor is in advance meeting with these folks, and I hope that he told them that I'm not going to be Jay Nixon. If I see any type of uproar or looting, I'm bringing in the National Guard, and we're not going to stand down.
And I'm glad that he told him that too, and I think it does bode well that he's kind of getting out in front of this a little bit, but. Let me get back to the quote, and the newspaper quoted the guy as saying this, but they didn't share that particular clip of video. So I want to read you the quote from this from this reverend yesterday. He said, "We're not here to try to control our young activists. That's not our responsibility. That's not our job. If a militarized police presence shows up, that will incite a certain response." So in other words, he's warning him, if you send the National Guard in here, it's going to make things worse. So these members of clergy don't feel any responsibility to head this thing off at the pass. Instead, I would argue they're fanning the flames and kind of giving a wink and a nod to the people they refer to as the young activists in their community.
And they do have a responsibility
They
to
do.
the young activists. Look, no one ever wants to stop people from exercising their First Amendment right of protesting. We're all for that. But they should be telling these activists that we are supporting you in expressing your First Amendment, where we do not support you having violence or rioting or anything like that. And I tell you what's going on with why these other pastors don't want to be out public. You know, there's a thing in our communities that is you don't want to look like you're being close to the man or white people. So that's what a lot of these pastors don't want to go on record, because they're afraid that their congregants will be mad at them for meeting with the white governor. That's the mentality of the thinking with that. Trust me.
Let the record show that this morning, starting at about 8, I started putting in phone calls to this reverend to try to get this Dr. Lyndon Bowie, because I'm assuming if he's willing to stand up in front of a bunch of TV cameras and do interviews with television radio reporters, newspaper reporters and television reporters, he'd be willing to come on the radio here. I have some questions I'd like to ask him about the clergy response to this issue, and so far crickets. We've not heard back or anything.
And it really upsets me, because black people of all people have had the justice system not go for us over the years, and so we should be the last ones not advocating for mob violence or mob justice. You know, let the justice system play out, because you lose all credibility if you are advocating for violence if you don't get a verdict that you want. That's not the way to go about this.
I think it's outrageous that people who wear the cloth are encouraging violence. There's no way to get around that. And if you don't agree with me on that, how would you feel if you were the wife or the children or the family members of a sitting circuit court judge who's being told publicly there will be blood on his hands if he doesn't rule one way or the other in a criminal case, and the facts be damned?
You know, pastors and preachers back in the 60s got major civil rights legislation passed through nonviolent means. And it's just a stain on that memory when you see people that are supposedly of the cloth, that are preachers, literally advocating violence if they don't get a verdict that they want. Martin Luther King and the civil rights leaders are rolling around in their graves right now.
I would agree with that, Chris Arps. Let me get to the phones here real quick. Vince, thanks for holding on. You're on the radio. Vince, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that no matter what the verdict is, this BLM group wants to protest and riot no matter what. They've been kind of slowing down and not getting the attention they want, and I feel like what we heard from Lyda Crewson the other day, how she just kind of wants them to just hug it out. It's really troubling.
Yeah, you said to my phone screener that you thought both sides wanted riots. Why would you think that?
Both sides, meaning the Black Lives Matter wants a riot, and so does Lyda Crewson.
Oh,
she knows that this is going to happen, and she's trying to make it seem like she is a bleeding heart liberal, and trying to take care of these kids and hope that they don't. But we know that she wants it so that it's going to look better for her whenever the angry, mean black or white cops have to do something about it.
Vince, thank you for the call. I don't know that Lyda Crewson has to work to look like a bleeding heart liberal. I think that kind of comes with the territory.
Exactly.
I can't envision that she wants to see violence in her city. I don't agree with him on that at all. In terms of one side wanting another excuse to act out, I think he's right about that. Yeah. But I don't think they have no reason to act out if it's a guilty verdict, right?
Oh, they shouldn't.
They've gotten what they want at that point.
But remember, this is a first-degree murder charge against this officer, and they were kind of alluding that anything less than first degree, we're still rioting. We're still tearing up the city.
So yeah, I assume the judge could decide that there was enough evidence there for aggravated assault or second-degree murder or something like that. I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
I did find out today something I did not know. The judge in this case can either call everybody back into the courtroom to announce the verdict, or he can just issue it, at which point it would be put out in the form of a press release or something like that, and then that's how the announcement would go.
I got a feeling that's the way it's probably.
If I was the judge, depending on how the verdict was going to go, I would very much stick that thing in my top drawer. I'd get a flight out to Arizona somewhere or some destination unknown, and then I'd call them back and say, hey, by the way, that verdict's in my top drawer. Could you hand that out now?
And put your house up for sale later. Don't put the for sale sign up before you leave.
Right, and we should all be hacked off that in this day and age, a sitting judge would have to worry about the reaction to a verdict based on law and order. Guilty or not guilty, it needs to be based on the facts and not the emotions of this case.